Okay guys, I think we're now live. There's about a 20-second delay, something like that. Upgraded the broadband, upgraded, well, everything. So run a new Ethernet cable, closed down Wi-Fi, which shouldn't be on. So closed down Wi-Fi. And we're still ticking over nicely. Just holler up if you can hear me, and we'll get the show on the road. I'll say something. Okay. So I think I'm live, so we'll just go with it. So here we are. We are in episode 4 of this Photoshop webinar. And tonight what we're going to do is we are going to work with smart objects in a bit more detail. I'm going to explain exactly what they are, what you can do with them, and more importantly, what you cannot do with them. Smart objects are a way that you can use smart objects to keep your file size down. You can use smart objects in various different ways, but there are some rules to using them. If you use them the wrong way, for instance, they won't work as well. Okay, yeah, I see Peter. I'm viewing. Hi, Peter. Okay, so let's get on with it then. We'll go straight into the Mac screen as usual. Here I'm here, guys. You know, just this mic out the way. Can't put it too far because Peter wants to hear me. Are you hearing me okay, Peter? Yeah. So anyway, let's get on to it. Smart objects. We're going to move into adjustment layers. We're even going to bring in a render from Cinema 4D, and we're going to make it look better than it does. Okay, because that's what Photoshop's good at. It's good at making renders or photos better. That's what it does best. You know. So let's get on with it. Smart objects. Okay, let me open a file here. I'll just come over here and I'll bring this up. So we're going to open this file here into Photoshop. Okay. And what we've got here is we've got two flowers exactly the same. Both layers, if I just run that piece of software again, I'm always forgetting to run. Both layers are identical, one's to the left and one's to the right, but they're both the same flower. Okay. And we're going to turn one of them into a smart object, right, to begin with. So it's very easy to do. All we need to do is select the layer you want to be a smart object, right click it, and convert it to a smart object. In essence, it's a smart layer. Yeah. So hi Angus, I see you. I see everybody. Hello Abdul. Yeah, he's listening on Ustream. So I'm throwing out to YouTube and Ustream at the moment. So we'll see how it goes. Right. Anyway, so we have the two flowers. One is a smart object denoted by this little icon here at the side of the layer, and the other one is just pixelated. So let's name it. Let's name this pixelated. So pixel will do fine, Steve. And this is smart. Okay. Just keeps us on the go. The good thing about smart objects is let's discuss a wee bit about them. The good thing about smart objects is that you can resize them up and down, yeah, with no loss of quality. You can't do that with a pixeled image. Okay, I'll show you the difference in a minute. If you look at the smart layer here, it can be a separate document known as a PSB file instead of a PSD, B for Bravo. So it's a PSB file. So if we double click on this layer, yeah, we go into the smart object itself. If you look up the top here, you'll see that the main document is a PSD file. Yeah. And this document that we've just opened is a PSB file, meaning that it donates from what it was called here right? Being layer 0, it was originally layer 0, and we've now opened it up. To change it, we could actually change it here, and it would reflect it in the main document. You know that already. I've showed you it. Okay, so I'm going to close down the PSB. So we're working with these files. I'm going to grab the two files, right? I'm going to grab the two layers, and I'm going to shrink them away down in size, holding the Shift key as I do so and the Alt key to center. I'm going to shrink them away down in size like that. Yeah? I'm going to go up to the top and I'm going to commit that. Okay? So we've now got those two layers shrunk down in size, very small. We're going to take them again, take the two layers again, and we're going to bring them back up. Okay, holding the Alt key and holding the Shift key. Now there is a definite difference between the two. Yeah? Now I've not committed it yet. I'm going to commit it in a minute. And what Photoshop will do with the pixelated image, Photoshop will try and evaluate the colours and try and evaluate the darks and the mediums and the lights associated to the flower head. Yeah, so I'll try and do that. Now, it doesn't make a very good job of it. In fact, it can't make a good job of it because it was working with pixel data to begin with. If we went back down again, let's take it back down again, right? Let's take it back down again without me committing it, right? And then I commit that. Okay, if I go back into my smart object, it's still the same size. Exactly the same size. The details there, everything's there about it. So let's grab the two of them again. Let's get back to where we were and bring them back up. Holding the Alt key, holding the Shift key. Right, bring them up. It's Option on a Mac, Angus. Bring them up, okay. And let's commit this now. Let's bring it up a little bit more. And let's commit it. Okay. So what Photoshop has done here is it's tried to evaluate what it had before. So there's a definite loss in quality. A loss in quality that we can't get back. Yeah? So smart objects are very, very important. Very important. Because you can take the smart object and it doesn't matter what you do with it. You know, what you do with it. Or turn it round and shrink it down. Yeah? Commit it. Bring it back up. Turn it round again. I'm just holding the Shift key to snap it to 45-degree increments. And it really is, I've committed it, it's very smart. It knows when Photoshop knows that this guy has made a smart object from this layer. So I'm going to create a separate part of this layer that is going to hold all the detail within the smart object itself. Very clever. Very, very clever. So that smart objects. Now, bringing smart objects in. If we place an image, yeah? If we place an image within this, we can keep this open. We can't do nothing with the pixelated image. That's the best it's ever going to get. In fact, we're moving on to adjustment layers tonight as well. And if I put a sharpen adjustment layer or something over the top, it's just not going to have the same clarity that the original flower had. You know, it's just not going to have it. So smart objects, very, very important. Right, so here we go. What we're going to do now is we'll just take them down in size and we'll move them out the way. I'm going to bring in something else. Okay. What I'm going to do now is commit that and I'm going to place a file. Right, so let's go back to Bridge and let me go in and place a file in here. If I go to 4 and let's just take something out of here. Maybe here. Let's just take something out of here. Let me take this old phone box. Okay. The right click on it. This is Bridge. It's Adobe Bridge. It comes. It doesn't come with Photoshop, but it comes as part of the Creative Suite. Okay, so what we can do is we can place in Photoshop. Okay, so we can place it into Photoshop, right? So it's now placed it in here. Now, automatically, it has not made a smart layer. So that's the first thing we would have to do. Now you can turn this on by default. You can actually turn this on. If you go up to Photoshop, go up to, Photoshop. Hang on to commit that. Okay. So it's not a smart layer at the moment. Go up to Photoshop and Preferences and just go to General. You'll see an item here that says always create smart objects when placing. Okay, so I could have went up to File, I could have went Place, Embedded, Placed Linked. Placed Linked is good because, we'll get into it a bit more, but Placed Linked is good because you can have a separate file on the hard drive and then link it to that. Yeah, but you have to have the file where it was originally. Place Embedded, I think you know, is going to embed the document right into the main document. Okay, but if you go up to, let's get back here, we're jumping all over the place. Always create smart objects, right? Always create smart objects when placing. Well, let's do that because there's a bit of a problem here with this. Yeah, so let's do that. And let's bring that file in again. So let's delete that layer and let's bring that file in again. Right, there it's there. And all we're going to do is place in Photoshop. Okay, so it's done it, right? But it has not created this as a layer, right? Not yet until you commit it. Now it is a layer. So if I went in here, into this document, it does not open it up as a PSB. It opens it up as a JPEG file. So anything I do in here to it is not going to be carried over. For instance, if I selected, let's straighten the image up first. If I go to the ruler, okay, and just run the ruler up the side of the telephone box. We're going to straighten this up, right? Run the ruler up the side of the telephone box and just say straighten layer, right? So it straightens it. So if we wanted everything in here, we could quite easily grab this and create a selection around that and go up to edit, fill. We're going to fill content aware. Okay, it's going to fill what's in round about it. Okay, so that's another trick you can use. And we'll go down here. Don't want to give the girl two heads, so up like that. And again, content aware. All I'm doing is hitting Shift and F5 there, guys. Okay, so we are going to change this dramatically in a minute. Sorry. So we're going to change this dramatically in a minute. And you'll see the difference because what I'm going to do, this is a smart layer, by the way. Right? So this is a smart layer. So I'm going to take the telephone box. I'm just going to crop this smart layer in there like that. And in there like that. And I'm going to hit the changes. Right? Now, the changes have not been saved to the other one. If I try to save it and say save, it comes up and says it can't save this document back to its original file format. Flatten the layers and discard extra. So the layers are flat anyway. Okay, so it does not work in the same way that a smart object would work. The best way to use this, and I'm not going to save that, the best way to use this, we'll just delete it, is to go back to Photoshop and turn that off. Always create smart objects when placing. Just turn that off. Yeah. So what will happen now when we place it? This is in depth tonight and smart objects, guys. Sorry, but it's very, very important. So what will happen when we place it? We'll just say place in Photoshop. So there it is in Photoshop. I'll commit it. right? And you'll notice that there is no smart layer icon, like this one has a smart layer icon. What you want to do is you want to go up here and you want to convert to a smart object. Yeah, now we can go into that smart object. We can do the same again. I had to go through that routine to let you see the actual problem with placing a smart object, you know, so I had to do that. So what we'll do again is go back in here and we'll straighten the telephone box up again. Right, very easy. I'm just using the ruler. I'm running the line down. If it was going the other way, I'd use a horizontal or a building or whatever it was to keep it level. And I'm just saying straighten the layer. Okay, so it looks a bit better. So what I'm going to do this time, instead of chopping that lot in, I'm just going to crop the layer at this side, okay, and bring it down here and in there. And what I'll do here is I will use a bit of content aware. Okay, so we need to watch because the box is close to it. It won't work perfectly, but I'll do for our example. So there you go, content aware. Control D to deselect. And what I'll do is I'll crop it again so we can see a significant change, and I'll take that guy out there. I'm still using the rule of thirds. It's run right up a third of the screen, so that's what we've got. You'll notice that when we changed it, it's now a PSB instead of the original JPEG file. Okay, and it's just a matter of going up here. That's what we've got at the moment, remember, is that. So it's a matter of going up here and just saving it. So it will save it over into this document, right? So that's what we originally, that's what we've done to the document. Again, very easily we can go back here. We can hit the Control Z key or the Command Z key to get us back to there. We could save that and it will update here. Okay, so very, very important. So what else can we do with, we can get rid of that. You now know about placing instead of bringing objects in. So let's open a file. Let's open a file. Let's go to Bridge and let's open that car. Okay, so we can say open with, or we can just say open, right? It knows Photoshop's open and it has it here. So we have this yellow car here. So if we wanted now to pull that, another way of bringing them in, you've seen me doing it before in the last 3 episodes, but I'm going to explain it to you. We placed the image in here. Yeah, we actually used the place command from Bridge. You can also use the place embedded, which will mean it'll be part of this document, or you can use the place linked, which will mean that the document you bring in will always be external until you embed it. Okay, making for bigger file, making for the linked one, making for less file sizes. Okay, so we've got that. We've got this. An easy way to get it in, I think Lewis had problems with this, is just to drag it. You can even make it a layer, and just to drag it up, keep a hold of the mouse, bring it down onto the canvas, hold the shift key down and it will center it and release. It's a big file, so we can take it down in size. But we know what the problem is now with taking this file down in size without making it a smart layer. We know what the problem is going to be right off the bat. So the first thing we are going to do here is right click and we're going to make that a smart object. Right, so we can close that down. We've got it in there. We can now bring this down in size. Okay, and we know that if we want to upscale it, etc., then it's always going to be there. Now that's now a smart layer, right? So we'll just name that again, car. And we can do things to it. We can go in and we can change the colour of it, you know how to do that. We could convert it to black and white. We'll do that very quickly. We can use the adjustment layers up here, right? And if you glance over them, you'll get what you need from it. But I'll go through every one of them tonight, okay, just to show exactly what these are doing. So we want the black and white adjustment layer. So now it's changed to black and white, okay? So we'll keep that like that. We'll turn it off for a minute. We'll make a copy of the car. We will put the copy above the black and white layer. Turn the black and white layer not on. You won't see it because of that. We'll then make a quick selection, okay, of the car. If I can up the size of the brush. We'll then make a quick selection of the yellow car. Right. Easy stuff. We would take our time with this, guys, and we would get a good selection going. Okay, back windscreen. Americans would say windshield. Suppose it's the same, right enough. And never mind the tyre, so I don't need the tyre. Okay, so again, it's just the Alt key round here like that. We don't need the tyre. Another thing we can do if we want it more, the selection more accurate, another thing we can do is we can go to quick mask. Yeah. So anything you paint in black in here, right? Let me just get rid of that. Anything you paint in black in here will be selectable, right? It means you can select it. I'm just going to turn this up. And anything you paint in white, anything you paint in white will be selectable. Anything you paint in black will be outside the selection. So we'll paint in white, okay, and we'll just hit the X key to swip them round about, and we will come in here and make sure our mask. Another wee tip for you can click there once. Let me just bring the hardness of this up a bit. That's fine. You can click there once, hold the shift key, come over to the other side, and then click again, and it'll do it all the way over for you. So what I'm doing is just enhancing the mask, just going up, going over here, making sure I've got the car. And again, your brush can be lowered, and finer details. You'd spend a lot more time in here, you know, with this. But once you have it, you have the selection. Once you have it done, you have the selection. So let me get that bit as well. I don't know what it is. Maybe the exhaust or something. It's hanging off. I think it's hanging. Yeah. Anyway, so I've now got the selection made. I can turn off the quick mask. That's over here. Very underused. That's over here. Can turn it off. Right. And I've got the car selected. Albeit very rough, but it's selected. Yeah. If I hold the Alt key down and click in the layer mask tool, yeah, it now makes the car black and white. Yeah, we want it round the other way. So if we just Control Z that, another way to do that is to just invert the color. You would just go Image, Adjustments, and Invert. Control or Command I. Okay, so it's going to invert that. So now we have a black and white image behind it, and we can do anything we want to this image. You know, anything at all that we want to this image. We could even blur that out, that image. Okay, we'll just put a Gaussian blur over it just now, and we'll put it up in size a bit. So there you go. We're blurring out the background. We could bring this guy here in, you know, add him to the mask. Again, it's just a matter of painting in white, and we can bring this fellow back in. So X to paint in white, and up the size of the brush, and we can bring that guy back in, you know, if we wanted to do that. I'll just bring him in anyway. And but remember that we're working on the smart layer. Yeah, we're working on the smart layer. Let me just get his hat sorted and what have you. It's a very poor example, but we're working on the smart layer here. So if we go back to the original, there's the original, you know, and if we can save that now, right? So it saves it, updates it to our original document over here, you know. So basically that's smart layers. So what else can smart layers do? Well, let's move on. The good thing about smart layers is you can manipulate them to your heart's content. That's the good thing about them. Let's put these ones into their own group. That's another thing I've not covered. That will group them all. Okay, and we'll just say lesson 1, and we can turn them off. Okay, what else can they do? Well, let's go and create a couple of circles. Let's create one circle. Okay, hold the shift key down, hold the alt key down, perfect circle. If you don't hold the shift key down, you know, you can get an ellipse, you know, but we want a perfect circle for this. So let's do that. This is a shape object. Okay, it is filled with white at the moment, so we can quite easily fill it with any color that we want. Let's fill it with a blue. Okay, so we're going to make this a smart object. First of all, we're going to rasterize it. Let's just rasterize it. What that does is it turns it from a vector image into a pixelated image. Okay, so the first thing that we have to do with this, remember, it doesn't matter how big or small this gets. This is a vector image, and it will always be crystal clear, always. Right, so let's do that. It'll always be clear. So the first thing we want to do with this, if we wanted to, we could make it a smart object immediately. We could make it a smart object right now. But for this demonstration, I'm just going to rasterize it. So I've rasterized the layer. They are all pixels now. Okay, first thing I'm going to do with it, create a smart object. So I now have this smart object here. Right. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to take a copy of this smart object. There's 2 or 3 ways I can do that. I can go up to layer, take a copy. I can drag the copy down here in the layer palette. I get another copy of it. I can hit Command J. I get another copy of it. So that's fine. As long as I've got a copy, I'm just going to move it over here out the way. I'm going to make one red and one blue. Right? So let's take this one here and we'll make it red. So go into that one, and instead of that being blue, we now want it to be red. We're going to use the style palette here. So we're going to say color overlay, right? And we are going to pick a red color, like that. And we're going to turn the opacity up so that's nice, maybe brown down a bit, so that it's red, okay? And you'll notice right off the bat that the color overlay is an effect that I can turn on and off. Now that's a good thing because that's not destructive in any way. So I could turn it on and off. If I right here and say rasterize the layer style, it will make it red. Okay, so let's go back. Remember, it's a PSB file. Let's go back here. Let's just say save. So it saved it back into this PSB file. Now look, it's made the 2 of them red. Yeah, one was blue. Remember, this one here, this one over here, this was blue. The one on the left was blue. But the one on the right we changed. We went into this one and we made it red. So what's happened? I'll tell you what's happened. Let's close that down as well. We took a copy of this layer. We took a copy of ellipse 1, right? When we shouldn't have done that. What we should have done, we can just delete that. What we should have done to take a copy of a smart object was right click, and up here it's got new smart object. A new smart object via copy. Okay? is very different from just copying it. We're creating a new smart object. What we were doing was copying an existing smart object. It can be confusing, guys, so let me do that again. I'm going to take a copy of this. I'm going to go into this one. I'm going to add some text, right? Let's add Peter. Let's add your name, Peter. Right, so there's Peter in there. Let's give him a drop shadow. Right, so let's do that. That's fine. That's okay. Something quick. Let's rasterize it again. Right, rasterize the type. And merge down. So we've got Peter in this one. Let's go back. You know what's going to happen. Let's save it. Right, we're going to get the two of them. Sorry, I forgot to pull that over. Is going to be Peter. Let me do that again. This one here should be over. The two of them are going to be Peter because we take a copy of the original ellipse. Okay, so we're going to delete that, and what we're going to do instead is go right click, and then we're going to take a new smart object via copy. Right, so we're going to create a new object from the copy. So let's do that. We're getting a bit boring now, guys. So if we want, we can go in here and we can, let's take Peter out of here. So we'll go in, we're just going to paint and get Peter out of there. Sorry, Peter. To select this colour, just hold the Alt key down. The eyedropper will come up, select it. You can see it in the palette over here. Right. And all I'm going to do is just come over here and I'm going to rub Peter's name out. And I'm going to put another name in there. And just say Angus. Okay. Now it's in red, you won't see it. That will happen in a minute. So go up to the character palette and we'll make that white. We'll add the same drop shadow over it. That's fine. We'll rasterize that type and we'll merge that down. Then we will save this layer, save it, and go back. So now we have two. We have Peter and we have Angus. So ellipse 11 here, this elliptical, this one above it, is its own smart layer. You know, I know it can be confusing, but it's its own smart layer. It really is handy to know that, because if you start to copy, I mean, if we brought in our graphics again, turned them off for a minute, and I wanted to make a copy of the car, for instance, right? And I wanted to copy that car. It's a smart layer, right? So I can hold the Alt key down, hold the Shift key down. I've got a copy of it. But anything that I do in here, if I change the car to red, for instance, both cars would be red. Okay? So what I would need to do is right click on it and make a copy via and just hold the Shift key down, make a copy via that, and I could go in and I could do anything to that copy. I'm not going to change it, but I could do anything to the copy. Let's just paint with something on it, and let's put Peter in here. Okay, and I could save that off. Save. Quite a big file, guys, so save it off. And when I come into the new one, it's updating the smart object in the original. So when I come into the new one, this one, because it's a new layer, has its own set of rules, if you want, you know. So I'm going to delete that and bring in our two circles again. Basically, that's smart layers. I could go on all night about them. I'm not going to do that because we need to move on and get the adjustment layers done. These things are important. I'm sorry, it's a technical, we will do something at the end, guys, but it's a technical challenge type thing. Sorry. And here you can place embedded, place linked, and again, if you're up in preferences, just have that ticked off. That always creates smart objects when placing. If you're going to create a smart object, create it yourself. Don't let Adobe, you know, create it for you. In my opinion, anyway, You know, I've done this for a while, and smart objects are fantastic. It really doesn't matter. I mean, this document here is, if we look at it down here, this document is 98, say 100 megabytes. This document is quite large. And if I go into the car, for instance, go and have a look at that, look at the size of that file, the car itself. You know? So if I just delete that, take the car, go in there, that's the one that we deleted. So this is 215 megabytes, just that picture of the car. If we go into the flower, for instance, the smart object, we can see that the flower itself is 22 megabytes. Yeah? So smart objects enable you to bring in high-res photographs, scale them, rotate them to any size with no loss of resolution. Now that's important if you're doing things like calendars and doing things like flyers or posters or anything like that. You could come in here, you could create another document that was an A3 or A2 poster, and you could bring it in here, you know, and tell the vendor at the other side, hey, I've got a poster in there that is 700 megabytes, maybe even a gigabyte in size. And the vendor will say, yeah, okay. And he'll actually print out the smart object. Once he opens it up in Photoshop, he'll actually print that out. It saves sending a TIFF file, which can be very large, a PSD file, which you would send to him, but this one's going to be small with a large file embedded inside it. You know, it's absolutely smart. Yeah, they're very, very smart as far as I'm concerned. It's great because if you've got a calendar made, and the calendar's, let's say it's A4, yeah, and you've got a calendar made and you've got 12 pages in that calendar, well, that's 12 documents, 12 different artboards, yeah, that you've got for that calendar. And you can make them smart objects, but have them all on one A4 page. So when you send it to the vendor to be printed, right, and he's going to print you, I don't know, say it's the George Formby Society, and they're doing a calendar, you know. What you would do, the old way to do it would be to put every page inside a PDF and throw it out that way. PDFs are fantastic, they're great, I use them all the time. In fact, Caroline got the backdrop in PDF and AI format. But again, I was very aware that what I was sending with the PDF was not too large for Caroline to handle. You know, I think Peter and Angus will know what I'm talking about there. It's not too hard for Caroline to handle. So, therefore, the PDF file itself is high res. You know, I think they still came to about 4 or 5 megabytes compared to what I was working with on the screen, which was something like 300, 400 megabytes. But the vendor at the other side will know exactly what to do with that file. He'll say, oh yeah, the designer has gave me this, he's made this attainable if it was a PSD file, he's put a smart object in there, and inside that he's got like 12 smart objects. Inside each one of those smart objects is an A4 page all decorated with George and the days of the week, a calendar. So he knows exactly how to go about it. So smart objects, very, very important. So we're going to move on, guys, because there's a couple of things I want to try at the end. I'm going to move, what we're going to do next, you're going to love this. We're going to take each one of these and we're going to have a wee look at them and see what they do and what they don't do, and I'm going to explain things about them. A lot of these have been added since the first Photoshop version. You know, they seem to be quite consistent now. They've not added a lot more. They've just enhanced what they've got. So when I started using them, I think you had only 3 or 4, you know, and then version 5 would come out, get another one, then version 7 would come out, you got another one, you know, and they're really, really fantastic. So what we're going to do is we'll take our 2 ellipses, we'll throw them down into the group, and we'll just do that. So let's bring in a photograph and we'll get started with this. Yeah, let's bring in this. because it's drastic. That's a good word for it. You know, so let's bring it into Photoshop. And just double click on it. That'll bring it in. Okay. So we've got this here. We'll drag it into our main document. I'll make this document available for you. I need to put the other ones online for you. First thing we're going to do, anything we do here, we're going to make it a smart object. Now we can scale it up and down to our heart's content. Right, so let's take each one of these in turn. Brightness and contrast. Now, let's take brightness and contrast. Let's do that. You'll notice right away above the image we just brought in, it's put a brightness and contrast layer. It's an adjustment layer, you know. Brightness and contrast, there's not much of it. Right now it's affecting every layer. So if we had some transparency in here, etc., and parts cut out that we're relying on parts below that layer, then this would affect everything below it. Yeah? So there's two ways to affect the image just below, right? There's two ways to affect it. And one of them is to hit this little icon here. And what this will do is it'll only affect the layers below. This adjustment affects all layers, right? All layers below it, right? Click to clip or layer. So I'm just going to click it. And right now, that is affecting, it says all layers, but it doesn't. It's just affecting that one layer. Because if I had to merge, if I had to take a copy of this, let's take a copy of it, right? And I had to brighten this one up, okay? Let's just make that, so the little arrow's there, you can see the arrow. So, and everyone's the same, they've all got this, okay? So this is going to affect this layer here. So if I turn the brightness of this up, okay, and the contrast, right, just like that. And then I right click and say, merge the two of these, could grab this, right click and say merge those layers, right? It's just affected the layer that it was above. It has not affected every other layer below it. It wouldn't do that, right? So let's go back. When you think of this icon here and it says this adjustment clips to the layer. In other words, it clips to the layer below it. Yeah, not above it. Not every layer below it. If I turn that off, now it's going to affect every layer because there might be degrees of transparency and everything. I'm repeating myself, but it might be degrees of transparency. You've chopped out this, added that, and it would affect everything. That's when you would use a stamp, okay? So, a bit of a boring image. So let's get rid of that, and let's go for another image, and we'll move on. Yeah, let's bring this in. Okay, so we've got that. Again, move it up in here, hold the shift key down. So we've got this. Let's close that down. Let's close that down. So the next one along, levels. Fantastic. I couldn't work without them. It's been one of those ones that's been in Photoshop from the very beginning. I think curves was added later, but levels is very, very, I use it all the time. You know, it brightens images, it sorts of white balance out and what have you. So we can see, right, let's look at the histogram in here. We can see right away that it's lacking some blacks that are over here, right? It's lacking some blacks. So it's lacking some information, and it's lacking some whites. Well, the image looks dull anyway, you know, so we can cheer it up by just bringing in those blacks. Now it'll get darker, as you can see. I'll do that again. It looks dull, it looks kind of, it's a raw file, it just doesn't look good at all. First thing we're going to do with it though is make it a smart object, just in case we need to move it around. And that's fine. We can go back in here and we can lower the blacks, and then it's missing some information at this end as well, guys. Okay, probably to about maybe the middle or the end of this histogram, so we can bring in the whites, right? And right away, that image is starting to look just that little bit better. And again, we can move the midtones around, and immediately that is looking a lot better. I mean, that's what we had, that's what we've got. So it's making things pop. Not as good as the camera raw filter, which is an in-depth study, but it's making things pop within this photograph anyway. As I said, I use it all the time. It just cleans the image up. If you're putting something to print and the printer comes back and says, "Whoa, there's a lot of jet black in there," and if you've got jet black and what have you, things can start to look flat very quickly. We know that white has no colour. You know, it has no colour, and black is made up of every colour. You know, so the levels adjustment there really does what it said. Now there's presets built into it. I've obviously went in and done it custom there, but there's presets built into this. You know, you could say increase the contrast, for instance. You know, I'll go back here, increase the contrast again. I'll go back, give you something different every time. And again, you can make your own. You know, you can go in here, you can save level presets. So it will save your level preset in here. Once you've got a preset that you like, it will save it right in there. I've got a lot of presets, so I took them out for this so that it wouldn't confuse you. This is what you'll get off the bat in Photoshop, this lot here. You know what I mean? As you can see, there's one left in Steve's PDF level. You know what I mean? Light and shadows, sort of light and the shadows, horrible, you know. So there's information missed there, so you'd bring that over, looks a bit better. And I mess around with the midtones. And that's levels, there's not much to it. I'm working on the red, green and blue channel at the moment, but you could quite easily work in the red channel, for instance, and say, well, I want to bring the red channel over. Now it'll make it green, right? So we want to bring the green channel over a bit, right? Now it'll make it purple. So there's that many things that you can do with it, you know. We can brighten it up, for instance, the whole thing. That's the blue channel. Let's go back to RGB. Let's brighten it up. Right, let's go here, brighten it up. So take that there, that there. So very, very quickly you can get something on the screen that was better than the original image. If we hit the auto button, Photoshop will actually do its best to adjust all the levels. You know, it'll make its own histogram, and it made it to begin with. So we're back to where we were with it. You know, and that's levels, guys. Okay, so I'm just going to delete that there, and we're back to this image. We're going to move on to curves. Very important, absolutely important. Both here, not so much Illustrator, but you can use them in Illustrator. Both here and Adobe After Effects, very, very important curves. Along the same lines. They're actually along the same lines as levels, but it's much more versatile. Again, you've got your red, green and blue channels. You've got presets that you can start up. You could make this into a color negative, for instance. You know, cross-processing colors. You know, it's taking every color and cross-processing it. You could make that darker, which is working out okay. You know, the dark one. Increase the contrast, which looks a bit better. I'd probably make it a bit lighter, right enough, you know, but lighter. And again, we can pick specific colours. We can get the lights from this image, okay? If we want to reset it, so we can reset it back to what it was before we started, we can get the lights from this image. So we could say that is very light in there. We can grab that. Now it's looking a bit better. Let's get the darks. They're really, really dark. That's there. So we could grab that. And now it's darkened it. Yeah. And then we can take a kind of mid-tone. Right. We can use a mid-tone like that. And look at that. I mean, you're really spoiled for choice here. You know, I mean, that's really, it's thrown it out. So Curves, very, very important, easy to use. You can't go wrong with them. If you wanted to view the previous state before you've done that, you can click on that. It'll let you see it before we added the curves. That's it when we added the curves. Now it's a bit dark, so I would use something to brighten it, probably the RGB filter, and I would brighten the whole image just up a bit. Yeah, probably pull that over as well. Now it's looking good, you know. It's still some darks in there that I'm not happy with, you know, but we can brighten them up a bit. You want to blow it out, you know. And again, you can always go back to, here's the previous, what we had before, after. You can always reset it. That resets it back to the beginning. So that's curves. Okay, very important for color adjustments, etc. And again, if you only wanted, let's do that again then. Let's go in here. If you only wanted a part of it, the image to be that, say you were going to replace the sky, then take the lightest color that you can see, take the darkest one that you can see, then grab a mid-tone somewhere around here, around the sea, grab that mid-tone, comes to life, and you say, well, that's fantastic, but I don't want the sky that colour. Well, that's great, because you've got this layer mask over here that you can go in and you can, as long as you've selected it, you've got a brush, and you can paint in black, and you can say, well, I don't want it to, the sky, I don't want that to be in the sky. So you can go around here, and you would do it a lot better than I'm doing it, guys. You'll take your time with a smaller brush. I'm just doing it so that we can move on. And you would take that out, and again you can click on that, you can grab your lasso tool, hit L, and you can go around here. You'll make a lot better job than me, I'll tell you. And you can go around here, and you're going to fill that in with black, right? So Alt backspace, or fill foreground color, Alt backspace, Command D, deselect, hit the Alt key, and we're back here. So now we've got that less the sky, you know. And then you can stack, because you want this. Another way to just affect the layer below it is to hold the Alt key down and move the cursor just between the layers, and you'll see a little black arrow. I just click it, okay? And that's affecting that layer then. So now you could quite easily go in here and say, well, I want another adjustment layer. I want to go back to, not black and white, let's say the color balance. I want to affect the color balance, and I want to try and do something with the color balance here. You know, I mean, unbelievable the things that you can do. That's what Photoshop was put in the earth for, to enhance photographs. If you think about it, that's what we had, very dull, just been taken, you know, as the sun was going down, and it's a good photograph. It's a bit underexposed, but nevertheless a good photograph, and you've just done that to it, okay? So that's that. We're going to move on. That was curves. Forget I've done anything with color balance there. Okay, so we're going to delete them. We're back to this. That's curves. Exposure. This is the one that we're looking for. So again, just affect the one below it. I'm just hitting this icon here to clip to the layer below. Okay, and we've got 3 eyedroppers again here. Yeah, so we've got the black eyedropper. We could go in and choose that dark rock there. So grab that. Oh, very dark. And we've got the white eyedropper. So we could go in and grab our white there. And we've got our midtones, which is round about there, right? So not happy with that. So we would try it another way. You would grab your whites first, all right, and then your blacks, and then your mid-tone, like some of that foam, for instance, right? And then you could say, well, I want the exposure to be up, down, right? Gamma correction, we want to go that way with it. Okay, so we're getting it now. It's happening now. More detail coming out. We're offsetting it a bit, just a little. And gamma correction, that's what we had. If we look at it, that's, if we turn that off, that's what we had, that's what we've got. You know, exposure, a bit blown out in the sky, but that's exposure. Another way to work with exposure basically is to go up to filter and go to the camera raw filter here and bring that in. You know, and camera raw will do a far better job than that one. We're not on that layers, but camera raw will certainly do a far better job than exposure. But it's there to help if you just need to tweak the exposure, like one f-stop or something like that, you know, then it's there. So let's move on again. And we have covered exposure. Let's go to vibrance. Okay, so vibrance is what it says. It'll enhance the colours within this photograph. So if we turn vibrance up, yeah, and the saturation up, you can see it's starting to enhance those colours. Even the green leaves, you know, and if it's a bit too much, then let's affect the layer below it. If it's a bit too much, then you've got the option of the layer mask, painting with a brush, and we can turn the opacity down in this to about 40%, maybe even lower, about 30. The flow down the same, about 30, around about that. And we can literally brush over the greenery so that it's not so vibrant. Maybe even a bit over that sky there, you know, if you wanted that to be kind of dulled out a bit. So the greenery here is not so vibrant, you know. And if you look at our layer mask, we're just painting with shades of grey. That's all we're doing, you know. And that's vibrance. There's not much to it. Right, so let's delete that. Delete the layer mask and delete everything. Delete that as well. So that was vibrance. So let's move on to hue and saturation. You can have some good fun with hue and saturation. It literally lets you change the colours of everything. I mean, you could go in here and you could say that the blues, you can enhance them a bit, enhance the reds. You go down here, you can change the colours. You'll notice that right off the bat that it's not necessarily doing what I'm telling it to do. You know, like that's on green there, but we're getting a purple sky, etc. You know, but if you want to change the colour, just double click on them and they'll go back to normal, I think. It should. Yeah. Double click on the names and it goes back to normal. Colorize. Colorize basically does what it says. Now it is working with this. If I could change it to blues, I can up the saturation. If that might be the effect you're going for. Maybe you're going for an orange in the sky to make the sky more orange, yeah, and up the saturation. So that's when you would use the mask here and you'd mask everything else out. You'd go in here and you would start to mask everything else out. Alright, that's up the opacity again like that. And you know, it's only affecting, you would take your time with this, guys, but it's only affecting the sky. You know, I mean, you might just want it to affect the bottom, but you use a soft brush. So you would say hardness, you need a nice big soft brush, and you would bring it in. And again, you can enhance that. I mean, you could take a stamp of this and enhance it. You know, I've done it very quick and dirty there, but that's hue and saturation. Great for changing, if you've got a selection around flowers, anything like that, great for changing the colour of them. Absolutely fantastic. Right, so I'm zipping through these because there's a lot to go on with. Colour balance. Colour balance is going to do what it says. It can do 2 or 3 things. It can address the highlights, the shadows, and the midtones. Its default is the midtones, and you can look at the midtones here. That would be the greys and and everything around here, and you can enhance them a bit. I'm just balancing out making it a bit warmer. You know, I can go into the shadows, for instance, and make them pop a little. There we go. So if we add some blues in the shadows, and if anybody knows anything about painting, that's what it's all about. Anybody painting pictures, then that's what this is all about. And it's balancing out the colours, etc. You know, just from taking that to there. So colour balance takes all the colours within the photograph and balances them out. Move on. I'm skipping through these so that you've got a rough idea exactly what they do. If you want an in-depth study of them, then go on the Adobe forums, or not so much YouTube, but on the Adobe forums, and they will certainly, you know, keep you right about it. I mean, there's pages on these things. I've not read them all, but definitely pages on them. So that's colour balance. What have we got next? Well, we've got our old friend black and white. You know how this works. It will send the picture black and white. If anybody knows anything about film cameras, you know, Peter, you might. If anybody knows anything about film cameras, then if you go into Camera Raw Filter, you'll get to use various different films like Kodak and Fujifilm, and there's a load of other ones. And there's another plug-in. I'll just show you that briefly. There's another plug-in here. I showed you the last time, I think. Just select that, filter, the Nick collection. This is free. Silver Effects. That is for black and white photographs, and it will use loads of different film. If you go to buy film today, colour is a lot cheaper than black and white. You know, it's a lot cheaper. I mean, not just, it's significantly cheaper. So that's something to look at. It's the Nick collection by Google. It used to cost, I think it was £50, and it's free. Now it's free, you know. So, and that's what black and white, well, let's have a look at black and white. So we can go in here and we can tint things black and white. We've got a layer mask. We could make things black and white, make things colour. With it, we can go in and we can say, well, we want the image to be darker. We want a blue filter, which will make it a bit more placid looking. A green filter. These are things that you would put on front of the camera to change the contrast and to change the way that highlights are shown within the. For instance, if you put a Polaroid filter on and you're in front of a glass and you're taking a photograph through the glass, you won't see a reflection, you know. So that's what basically these are taking the lights and darks and they're looking at them through that blue, red, green filter. You know, infrared is what it says. You know, it's an infrared photograph. I think you've took a couple of them, Angus, and most cameras now have it fitted with them. But there's special lenses you can get to enhance it, you know, make it more HDR infrared if you want. If you wanted that to be lighter, again, these are all presets. You can add your own. I use Camera Raw or Silver Effects to do what I've got to do here with this, but it's there. It's there for a little tweak, you know, on anything. Okay, so let's get rid of that. Delete that and delete this. So we're back to this again. So we're color balance, black and white, photo filter. Oh, you're going to love this. We were talking about the filters red, green and blue for black and white photography. But what about the filters that you add to a camera for colour photography? You know, we've got a warming filter. That's the default, is a warming filter. And you can select it, you can turn it up, you can see it getting warmer, you know. We can even change the colour of it, right? We can click in here, we can change the colour of it. If we want it to be more red, more orange, right? And we can do that. And again, up the density. Now it's getting more red. I'll keep it up here. I'll change it again to blue, right? You can see it already. You know, so that's what these do. You used to get these filters. You can still buy them. I've got a few. In fact, I use them for a digital camera as well. And they just change the way that the picture is taken through the lens. And that's what they do. So warming filter, that's the default. You've got so many different filters here. A cooling filter, something we done a minute ago. Yellow filter, you know. It's these things. In fact, I've got a case with a load of different coloured filters in it. And they fit my new Nikon, you know, so keep a hold of them. And that's all there is to be said about the photo filter. It's a lens it's a filter that goes in front of the camera. It simulates a filter that goes in front of the camera, and so the camera can take a photograph. For instance, if you were using ultraviolet lights and you put on a green filter, you won't get that, not ultraviolet lights, fluorescent lights, and you used a green filter, you won't get that overcast orange effect. Yeah, but most people don't have a green filter, so they just click, 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 and they get an orange cast. We done that, I think, a couple of episodes ago, and you can take it out in Photoshop. But if you've got the filter, then use the filter, because the less work that you need to do in Photoshop, well, the better, you know, because it might be a product you're taking a photograph of, it might be a solar lamp you're using, you know, you want a blue filter for that. So it's horses for courses, you know, that's what I think. That's what I find anyway with it. You know, so let's move on, guys. Let's get rid of that. Don't show that again. Just delete it. And so that was the photo filter. Our channel mixer. Now, here's a clever one. Within each colour photograph, there are 3 channels apart from the RGB. There are actually 4 channels. But the 4th channel is made up of all the 3 channels coming together. There are other formats, other modes. In fact, if you go up here to image mode, you'll see lab color, CMYK for printing, multi-channel, index color, that's usually 256 colors, grayscale, bitmap. Right now we're working with an RGB color. So the red, green and the blue channels, and if you look at the photo, you can see there's a bit of a difference. They're all holding color values. Every one of them are holding color values. And we can mix those channels to get a different result. That's all it is. So if we go up to the channel mixer, right, and we're now mixing the red, green and the blue channels just by diddling around with this. If we take a preset, for instance, black and white infrared, right, they're all black and white. In fact, there's one with a red filter. Output channel grey. You can say monochromatic, right? We could go back up here to the default and we can mess around, and the channel filters, the channel mixer is really one of the strong points of Photoshop. It's been there for years, you know, and they seem to enhance it with every release, you know. Again, you can make them constant, you could tone it back a bit, you know, it's very subtle changes, but it makes the colours pop. Yeah, so let's go back to where we were, and that is the channel mixer. I'm zipping through these guys because I think we're, been on another 10 minutes already. I've rabbited on. I didn't know I could speak as much. Right, so the channel mixer, colour lookup. Now this one's good. What the film industry do, and they still film in using film. Very rarely do they film with digital cameras. In fact, there's only a handful of films I know that have used digital cameras, modern digital cameras. They like film. They like film for a couple of reasons. It's so easy to enhance something once the film is scanned digitally, to go to Blu-ray or 4K or whatever. There's so many things that they can do with the negative, with the film itself. So that's why it's still used. What they used to do with the films as well is they can put lookup values over the top of them. These LUT files here, and I think Photoshop gives you a load of different LUT files to they're basically just lookup files, and they change the colours of different parts of the image, you know. So for instance, if we put horror blue over the top of this, now it looks kind of spooky, you know. And these things are taken from the lenses or from the filters that the film industry use. Fujifilm, there we're using Fuji. There's Kodak, Moonlight. You know, let's just do that. Bit dark, but if you're sticking the moon up there and what have you, and that's the effect you were going for, you know. Foggy night, you know, you can play around with them. A 2-strip look, you know, kind of psychedelic, 3-strip psychedelic look. That's actually quite nice. So crisp winter, for instance, you know. So the lookup files they're derived from the film industry, you know. Not only that, you can create your own. There is a way to do it. I'm not going to get into it here. You can create your own using different colours, and you save it out, and you can save it out to an LUT file, a LUT file. And maybe if we get a chance, we'll do that with a couple of files, but not tonight. Trying to get this out the way. I'm looking at the time and everything here. So you can go black and white, right? Kind of abstract. Black and white poster. You can see where it's going. You know, blue tone. And at any time, let's go back to that black and white poster. At any time, you can take the opacity and you can bring it down. If you think that you want that sky, then you can bring the opacity down, or you can use your layer mask to do it. You know, so many options within Photoshop, but these adjustment layers, very, very important. Use them all the time. And if you're looking for that cinematic look, let's say, Angus, that you have you've got your model ready, you've got your backdrop green screened or whatever you're using. If you're using a 3D model, or you've modelled it up yourself, or you've got a green screen that you're going to track the camera, and you're going to take it into something like Maya or 3ds Max or something like that, then these LUT files are very important. They're going to bring it to life, and they do exist. They're called looks. You know, that's what they call them. The film industry call them looks. In fact, there is a plug-in for After Effects that you can get that make it look fantastic. For instance, if you're filming at the GFS, and After Effects is coming, guys, I'm going to do that, but I'm going to do Illustrator first in a couple of weeks, but After Effects will be coming, and I'll be showing you some tricks with After Effects and Premiere together, as well as Photoshop. And if you look at the GFS and you want to make somebody really stand out on stage, and you want the lights to be, you know, just right, and everything, the audience to be just right, then you use these LUT files, these lookup files. They're called looks, and that's all that color lookup is, you know. Moving on, invert, very easy. All that does is turns it into a negative. Doesn't do anything else. I've not known it to do anything else. But again, if that is the special effect that you were going for, so be it, you know. But well, I don't find any use for it. But to me, it just turns it turns it into a negative, you know. In fact, when you scan a negative on a high-res scanner that I've got here, when you scan a negative, the first thing I do is invert it with that adjustment layer, and it inverts it from the negative to the colour. So another way to do it would be to go up here, adjustments, invert. Basically the same things are here. Okay, so let's move on. Posterize. Okay. Well, this is again what it says. It is going to posterize the file. It's going to make it like, and you can get Andy Warholish type thingy, you know, going with it. I very rarely use it, but I dare say that's what it's for. Special effects, threshold, again, black and white, it will change it to. And threshold is good for getting, I'll tell you what it's good for, good for getting dark and light values. I'll give you a for instance of that. If I wanted to get light values to find out where the lightest value was in this image, and I know that it's about there, then I can grab this eyedropper tool. I can say take the color sampler tool, I can put it in there. Right? Well, try it again, Steve. Put it in there. Okay? And let's take those two out. So the color sampler tool, that would be my sample for the lightest color. If I went back to threshold, right, and I wanted the darkest color, right, I just pull it, keep pulling it over. I know that that rock's really dark, so I keep pulling it over till I get a dark color, and again, I've now got the dark color. So now I've got this. If I take the posterize effect off, I now know that I've got this, that's the lightest colour in the photograph, that's the darkest colour. If I was going for a mid-range colour, I'd come in here somewhere. And I know that the surf is kind of mid-range, and again, that would be my third choice. So it's there, it's very good for that. Yeah, again, you can make black and white posters with it, it's up to you, but it's very good for that. If we take it off, we can see that I've got three distinct selections here, that when I'm using curves or indeed levels or anything like that, I can keep referring to these, you know, and to get rid of them, it's just clear all, right, and they're gone. So that's a threshold. That's what I use threshold for. I've never found any other use for it. If I was going to do a black and white poster, well, it would be a bit better than just black and white, you know. So that's posterized threshold. Selective color. Never used this either. You know, I mean, I know what it does, so we can select. I'm sure we can select a color in here. Selective color. This is the reds, right? Let's say there's some magentas in there, and I'm sure we can tone them up and down. You know, I've never. Again, another one that I've never. Let's see if we've got some. Let's see yellows. There's some yellows in there. It is doing some. You might not see it here, and it's very, very subtle. Again, you could go absolute with it. It's very subtle, but again, it's there for a reason. You know. So the last one is gradient map. Very, very important. I use this all the time. You've seen me using it. Gradient map. We put a gradient map over the top of it, and we just choose a map and bring it in. Do that. Change it to soft light, and look at that immediately. All that needs, if I had to put a layer above that, take a stamp, I'm hitting Command or Control, Option or Alt and Shift and E. So on that's Control, Alt, Shift and E, and I've just took a stamp above it. You can see it there. And if I could go in and enhance that, so I could get into Camera Raw, right? And if you give me a minute, guys, I am just going to change. No, never mind it. It's okay. The lights went out again. So, right. So I could just enhance. I could take up the exposure on that. You know, go in here. If I just wanted the exposure, if I took the exposure, double click on that, and I'll take it back. If I just wanted the exposure in a certain part, all I need to do is grab a radial filter. You've not seen this getting used before. Grab a radial filter, right, like that. Put it there. Okay, and let's take it up there like that, and down there. So I want it to be gradual, and it's right now it's inside. Anything applied to it will be inside. So if I go exposure, right? It's bringing the exposure up. The temperature, I want to take the temperature up. The contrast, I'm going to take up. The highlights, I'm going to hold the Alt key down and bring that up in increments. Whites, highlights down a bit. The shadows up a bit. And saturation, knock it back a bit. Right, and if I go back here, I can go into the purples and I can knock the purple back and knock magenta back. I can then go back in here and up the exposure a bit, up the contrast a bit, take the clarity up and the vibrance just a little bit. Highlights, knock that back a bit so the sky comes out. So basically I've used camera raw filter. It's a very big image I've got on the screen, guys. That's why it's taking the 16 gig of RAM in this as well. So it's a very big image, and I've done quite a lot with it. So we used the gradient map. We put that over the top of it. It knocked the colours back, but enhanced them a bit. We used camera raw filter to take those colours and enhance them a bit more than that. You know, so this will finish in a minute. Once it finishes, we'll go on to the next part, and that is taking a render of some George Formby coasters that was produced in, and you can knock that back as well, by the way. You can knock that back. They were produced in Cinema 4D, and we are going, as what you see is what you get, and we're going to use the camera raw filter to do that. So let's take this lot and let's drop it. Okay, let's get rid of that. Let's get rid of that. The group and the contents, we don't need it, and we've got to keep that. Right, that's fine. So let's bring in that file, okay, and let's go to episode 4, and it is going to be adjustment layers, camera raw, smart layers. Let me have a look here. Just bear with me, guys. Let me go to the desktop and let me take this one here and double click it. So this is what was rendered out of Cinema 4D. I never had the coasters, the plastic coasters to put the photos into. So you know how I coloured these up. So we're going to enhance this a bit, and that will be the end of it. Okay. So the first thing we're going to do is take a copy of that. We're not going to resize it or anything. In fact, we don't need a copy of it. Put a layer above it. Choose the brush tool, and we are going to tone down the opacity to about 50% and the flow to about 50%. Bring the size of the brush down. We're going to right click in the brush and make it soft. Okay, no hardness. Hold the Alt key down, get the eyedropper. Okay, and we're going to brush out it just gave it some atmosphere, so I had these things lying in the floor in the 3D program. We will get into Cinema 4D, etc., so that I can show you exactly how to do how you can make your own products even if you don't have them. You know you're going to do something, a calendar, and you want to make a calendar and then place the graphics over the top of it. So basically all I'm doing is just tidying this up here. That's all I'm doing here. So you can see this image is a bit washed out, alright? So we're going to address that. So that's what we had, that's what we've got. Merge it down, and let's take a copy of it. Right off the bat, without doing anything else, I'm going straight into camera raw filter. As easy as that. I'm going in here and I'm just going to play with what I've got here. So right away, exposure, just a little bit. Highlights, let's have a look at them. Shadows, tone the shadows down a bit, highlights down a bit. Yeah, that's better. And the whites, right, just the blacks, they're very important. They make it pop. You know, up the clarity of it, and let's take the vibrance, up the vibrance a bit. We don't need a vignette or anything like that. We've got purple in George's jacket, so we could address that. I'll not take it right out, but it will certainly enhance it a bit. Right? And the magentas as well make up purple, and the blues make up purple. So again, we can tone it down once we've done that. So let's take it back into Photoshop. And so that's what we had, that's what we've got. They've now popped a bit, right? So all we need to do now with this is make it a smart object first of all. Convert to smart object. And then we'll go into the smart object. And we will move it up. Move that up like that. Right? And we need to extend the background. So let's grab the background here. Hit Command T. We'll bring up the transform tool and just pull that down. It's just a solid colour anyway. Pull it down, Command D to deselect. And we'll stick some text in here. I just wanted to show you this. Again, what we can do as well. No, we won't. Well, we could make it a bit smaller, right? Make it a bit smaller like that. And we will select this side over here. In fact, another way to do it is to grab that big grey part that we've got, hit Control J, make a copy of it, and just pull that all over the place, like this. Hold the Alt key down, pull it over here. Hold the Alt key down again, pick that up, turn it around like that, pull it over here, hold the Alt key down again, alright, as soon as we commit it, Alt key down again, put that over here, right, and bring George right to the front. Okay, merge them together. And then go in here, add a layer mask, and paint with black, and a nice big soft brush, and just paint with black in here. Too much. Alright, just round all the creases like that. Up the opacity. Okay. Yep. Yeah, okay, Steve. That's it. Should have probably left it the way it was, guys. So, leave it the way it was. Get this finished. That's fine. Okay. So just add some text to it, and we're done. New coasters. On sale, that'll do. Right, so grab that, put that in there, and go in here and make it kind of always take a colour out the original image. So I'm sorry it's been a bit boring for you tonight, because I had to get the adjustment layers, because they're going to be very, very important in the weeks to come. You know, they're going to be very important. So you'll know that when you do something in Illustrator, for instance, you'll be able to use the adjustment layer. within Illustrator. And the adjustment layer within Photoshop, so you're not limited to just the colours. Another thing we can do here is we can take the fill, we can throw the fill right down like that. We can go up here, we can add a drop shadow that has no distance associated to it. The opacity is full blast, and the size is coming up like that, and that blue that I had is coming around like that. Let's tone that down. Okay, and we're on a PSB layer, so if we save that, we go back to the original layer. So that was what we had, that's what we've got, and that's it, fellas. I'm sorry it's shorter tonight. My lamp gave up again, you know. They said the batteries last for an hour, you know. It says, sorry Steve, I think I've lost you. Peter Pollard, downloading that collection looks good. Angus, right, sorry Steve, I think I've lost you. Well, I'm still streaming, everything's going well at this end, but I hope you picked up on quite a lot there, Peter. Anyway, Peter, it'll be online in another hour, you know, because YouTube process it, etc. So thanks again, guys. I hope that you've learned something. I'm sure you've learned something from it. There's a lot more to come. We're going to get into Illustrator is going to be a big one. Oh, Peter's back. Hi, Pete. I don't know what happened, mate. I'm still online. Yeah, I'm still on the air. Believe me, everything starts to flash here. Everything starts to flash if you're not online. So we'll be covering Illustrator. We'll then move on from Illustrator, and we're going to add one more package. We're going to add InDesign. We're going to take InDesign, and we're going to use InDesign along with Illustrator and along with Photoshop to create things like calendars and cards and posters and everything like that. That will be very interesting for you, Peter, because you'll utilise a lot of that stuff for the society. I must say, mate, I've got to say this, and it will be on, millions of people will see it, hopefully. You do a wonderful job at that society, and every one of you are run off your feet. I really feel it for you at the end of the evening, and I'm sure I say this to everybody. That I'm sure I'm saying this for everybody. Thank you very much, mate. You and the society. If there's something wrong, if people don't like it, you know, and they think there's something wrong, you know, they should speak to the elders to help change it. That's what it's all about. That's what the society's about, you know. Everybody's approachable. Thank you very much for another great weekend. Anyway, I'm not going to rabbit on anymore. I'm going to get a nice cold beer and roll up my green screen and fix my light, and, you know, everything happens when it's live. So, bye-bye, guys. I'll speak to you soon. Thanks.